All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 5:02 p.m. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and the Goethe International Charter School Pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a citizen of the world, I will follow Goethe's circle of learning. Curiosity opens my mind, ideas lead to knowledge, responsible choices show respect, cooperation strengthens others, learners are courageous, empathy creates community.
Als ein Bürger dieser Welt folge ich dem Kreis des Lernens. Neugierig, ideenreich, respektvoll, kooperativ, mutig, empathisch.
All right, roll call. Frank?
Present.
Sam?
Here.
Pete?
Here.
Katrin?
Here.
And I am here as well. I would like to make a motion to modify the agenda slightly. Got a lot of things on the agenda today, so I would like to motion that items B, C, D, and E move in front of the ED report, just to make sure we're not keeping any candidates waiting. Do I have a second?
Hold on, B, C, D,
and E. They're the
approval of the smaller stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, yeah, got it. Yeah, I agree.
That's a second by Frank.
I second, yeah.
All in favor, Frank?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes. Yes.
Katrin?
Yes.
All right, moving on to public comment. Go ahead, Casey.
The public may comment on any item that is on the agenda or any other item that is in the board's jurisdiction. Members of the public who wish to comment during the board meeting may use the raise hand tool on the Zoom platform or raise their hand if attending in person. Individual comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and the total time for this purpose shall not exceed 30 minutes per meeting. If an interpreter is needed for comments, they will be translated to English, and the time limit shall be 6 minutes. Individuals may speak 1 time per subject. The Board of Trustees reserves the right to mute or remove a member of the public if comments or actions during the board or disrupt the board meeting. Board members are prohibited from responding to or commenting on matters raised by the public that are not on the agenda.
All right, Timothy Shea, you have a public comment. Would you like to start?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. Thank you, as always, for having me on. You said I have 6 minutes or 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, great. So just, I'll try to be really fast. So thank you, everyone, for responding to my public records request. I received it, read it in detail, obviously disappointing, frustrating. I wish in a way that I could just say, like, oh, what a bummer, this big bureaucracy that we live inside of, them being unorganized. And
leadership, Board of Trustees for the school.
And so, yeah, I wish we could just say, oh well, but you know, unfortunately, I just think there just needs to be a different approach, whether that's new leadership or whether that's additional leadership. But I obviously think that this issue is super important. I think this started for me as a small issue, a very focused thing. About 2 years ago, when I said that there was an issue at the front door and the buzzer gate and the cameras. Although over time I've seen this sort of like proliferate. You know, although I'm not a one issue voter, it may seem like I am, but like it's brought to light, in my opinion, a lot of broken things, whether that's misconduct or whether that's just like failure to escalate or whether that's just straight negligence on the part of the city or the district. But my confidence in the group has really evaporated in that time. In reading the documents and doing my research, I found this gentleman, Cesar Alvarado, over at LAUSD. You know, I read the comments. The comments are obviously alarming. I can see the alarm in Goethe's responses to them, that this is just taking, they would go like 2, 3, 4, 6 months at a time without doing anything. So look, you know, you guys know me now. You know my style, you know, I'm very resourceful. And so I don't know if Mr. Alvarado needs a personal reminder of the gravity of this issue or his personal liability with regards to it. I do have his phone number, his email address. I understand what his salary is. I know the person that he reports into. I have the contact information for the LAUSD Human Resources Department, the Employee Relations Department. I have the information for the California Department of Education. And I intend to use these resources to the extent that they can provide leverage. If the board wishes to work in conjunction with me, that would be awesome. I've offered my help, my time, my money, and my clout to the extent that I have any clout multiple times. It doesn't feel to me that that's being used, which is a shame. I do feel a bit slighted. One issue I will bring up is this Ring camera, which is supposed to be a backup solution to the Buzzergate. It was promised to us multiple times by the administration. I don't see the Ring camera. I don't know where the Ring camera is. I don't know why it was promised if it's not going to be installed. I do feel a bit stonewalled. I'll call out Yasir, Samantha, and Biggie. Why did I have to go fill out a FOIA request and get this on record at the state, and city and state to get these questions answered? So you guys want to work with me? Awesome. If you don't, I'm going to do things my way. You guys all have my contact information. So that's my public comment.
All right, well, thank you, Timothy. I do see that update on campus safety is first on the ED report. So looking forward to getting a response and a report from the admin on where we are, and especially because I think the last time we left off on the installation of the Ring camera, that was imminent. So I look forward to that. So hopefully you stick around. Okay, is there any more public comment? I see a raised hand from Eric. Go ahead, Eric.
Sorry about that. So it's good to see all of you. Been I think 6 or 7 years now over here at Goethe. Was really excited to meet all these candidates on the ED. So I want to say, I think you guys did a good job with hiring the help to go find some good candidates. I think some, I love our current staff, but I do feel that we do need some new, fresh blood and energy and leadership. And I really felt that you got two great candidates, and I was excited to meet them. I got to meet one of them in person. I got to do both of them over Zoom. And I hope that you all really value the comments that the families and parents that have been here for a long time have to say. And kind of going along with that, so the video recordings, are important for those who weren't able to make it. And I found out that just today, the video was finally released at 4 o'clock, which was after the time that an email got sent out saying, hey, parents, make sure you, fill out your surveys and do your responses back. So I think I hope the board considers that and allows some more time for getting that parent feedback. And again, I think there's a lot of kind of question marks on how this all went down. And I think it's important that the community knows and gets a chance to review and say something about it, because we're really your stakeholders here that you need to hear from. And hope you value our opinion. So thanks again for everybody's work. I know, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. If it's all right with you, I hope you stick around, because I'd like to just say clear up a couple of things before we get into the candidates section of the meeting. And yes, I did see the email. That I believe is a typo, so we'll make that correction and handle that. But thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Sorry, I got to go to page 2
Doesn't
now.
look like it. I
Doesn't
don't
look like
see
it.
anybody.
Right?
raising
I'm
their
not wrong,
hand.
right, Biggie? There's no other hands.
I don't see anybody else.
All right. Well, that being said, let us move into consent. I'd like to make a regular board meeting minutes of February 12th, 2024. All in favor? Frank?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Katrin?
Yes.
Moving on, and that's a yes for me. I'd like to approve the special board meeting minutes of March 11, 2024. Is there a, moving on to the vote. Frank?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Katrin?
Yes.
All right, so we are going to jump right into.
Is that a yes for you also?
That is a yes for me, yes. I'd like to make a motion to approve the continuing audit services with Christie White and Associates. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, go ahead, Biggie.
We have currently we have a 3-year contract with Christy White. We've done 2 years and the contract goes still through this year. But in order to comply with LAUSD requirements, we need to vote on the audit firm every year in March. So I would just like for you to approve the continuation according to the contract that we have with them at this point anyway.
All right, board members, any questions, comments? Frank,
No.
Sam?
No.
Pete,
No.
Katrin?
No.
All right, moving on to the vote. All in favor to approve the continuing audit services with Christy White and Associates? Frank,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Katrin?
Yes.
That is a yes for me. Item C, I'd like to make a motion to appoint the board member to attend the public lottery on April 4th, 2023. My motion is for Katrin. Katrin, would you like to second that?
I'm sorry. Yes, dear. Can you say that again, please? I just want to make sure I heard that. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm nominating you to be the to attend the public lottery on April 4th. I know you and Sam have taken turns. I believe it's your turn, and I also think Sam's schedule in April is pretty tough.
When is the date?
April 4th?
Actually, yes, sir. I'm just realizing that I copied it in. It's April 9th.
Oh, April 9th,
Tuesday,
2024.
April 9th, 2024. The Tuesday
Sam,
evening, and it takes about 2 hours from 6 to 8 p.m.
Okay.
excellent. All in favor? Frank?
Well, so she second the motion?
She's taking the motion. She seconded it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then yes.
Sam?
So she seconds and accepts your nomination. Is that correct, Katrin?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Sam?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Katrin?
I guess so. Yes.
Thanks, Katrin. You're the best. All right, item D, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2024-2025 academic calendar. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, go ahead, Biggie.
Casey is, I can't see it. Okay. So you can see here the suggested academic calendar for next year. It has 180 days of instruction as every year. We are planning to start on Tuesday, August 13th. This is a little different from LAUSD. They start on Monday, but we've learned that it is a much better setting for our school to start with Tuesday. And this year we've made Tuesday and Wednesday short days, so minimum dismissal days in the first week, so that teachers and students can ease into the new school year. The other difference to the LAUSD calendar is that we are continuing with the 3-week winter break, meaning LAUSD will come back on Monday, the 6th of January, and we are still proposing to have that week off and coming back on Monday, the 13th. That makes us finish the school year a week after LAUSD. So they are done in the beginning of June, and we would have our last day on June 9th. Reasoning for that is that we have a lot of families that travel through winter break, and we are worried that we would lose the attendance because people will travel anyway, because for 15 years now we've had a 3-week winter break. And also with regards to the ELOP, Expanded Learning Opportunities Program funding, we need to offer 30 additional days per school year, and it would be very hard to find 30 additional days if the winter break was only 2 weeks long. So that first week in January, from the 6th to the 10th, we will offer a winter camp so that those families who are around here and who need childcare could send their children to camp. Any questions?
Frank,
No questions.
Sam?
I have a couple questions. So I see on the calendar that it says that we'd have a minimum day on the 9th. I've heard reflection back from the parent community that having that one day of school on that day that no other parts of the district are in school, or make it difficult for them to align their vacations, their time away, and it poses some difficulty and might be an area where we lose a lot of students for that one day. So I don't know if there's any other place that could take hold. And then also for the third week of winter break, understanding that Goethe will be offering school or a winter camp during that time, it is difficult. I understand from the families that we have that when we have a break in time that doesn't align with the district or neighboring districts, that it becomes very difficult for people to find other camps that might be closer to their house or other things, because we do have people who come from out of the district, and sometimes this a week that seems off calendar with other cycles is very difficult with some of the schedules. So I don't know if there's any flexibility or any other thoughts that can be done to help, take in those concerns.
So those are both valid concerns. So the week in January, we could possibly just do 2 weeks winter break. That is definitely an option. And LAUSD had 3 weeks winter break until last year. Last year, they did a 2.5 week winter break. And this year, they've shifted to a 2-week winter break. So we could do the same shift if that was what we wanted to do. And then the hanging Monday is difficult. We would only be able to not have that hanging Monday if we either started on the Monday in August, or if we eliminated the March 3rd, which is a professional development day that we find very helpful, that the teachers can have a professional development day in the second half of the year, just to make sure that they align their programming and their teaching and everything in regards to then when it comes to testing and everything. But we could eliminate that day, March 3rd, then the last day of school would be Friday the 6th and not Monday the 9th. That attendance doesn't count for the apportionment of funding any longer, because it's after the P2 report. So from that perspective, it's not a problem for us. But you're right, it's a day that some families miss because it doesn't work for them to come back to school for that one day in the week. We will have that hanging Monday the first time this year. We didn't have it before, if I'm not mistaken, or did we have it last year? We had it already, and it didn't give us an issue, so people came to school. However, you're right, we had some families that had already signed up their children for 5-day camps for that week because they needed childcare for the rest of the week, and they did not come to school on that Monday.
Any other questions, comments, Pete?
Yeah, I thought LAUSD still had at least 2.5 weeks of winter break, and they were starting before, like, the middle of the week prior than ours. Or am I looking at the wrong calendar?
The calendar that we have shows that they are starting with the 22nd or so, 23rd, and that they end with the and come back on the 6th.
Hang on, let's see. That one was approved 3/27.
Yeah, they approve always 2 or 3 years in one sitting.
Because I have one that's approved 6/20/2023. When is yours approved?
This is 3/27. So is there a newer one?
Apparently, since
Okay, and when do they finish with that for that calendar?
so that one's December. I'll send it to you, but it starts the 16th of December, and they finish on the 3rd. So that part, the back end is the same.
Oh, so then they still have the 3-week winter break. They just don't do it the week in January. They do it the week in December, which then makes it only 2 weeks in between Thanksgiving break and winter break this year. Okay. If that's the calendar that they have, then I think it would be an easy fix for us to switch that week and have the same 3-week break as LAUSD and just start on the 16th of December.
Although ours is better for skiing, so
Much better, and I already know that it's going to be very hectic in those 2 weeks in the beginning of December. But you're right, it makes complete sense to go along with the district in what times we are off. So if we go with the 3 weeks, we should switch it and do the week prior to what you're seeing here. So have the 16th through the 19th be through the 20th be the break and not the first week in January.
all right. I sent you the calendar I had, and you can
Yeah, perfect. Thank
verify
you.
and
Pete.
Katrin?
No additional questions. I wanted to second Sam's concerns from a parent representative perspective.
Are we amending the academic calendar per Pete and Sam's comments, or what's the motion?
I'd like
Go ahead, Sam.
I'd like to suggest that the team take it back and just verify the areas of alignment with the LAUSD calendar to see if they have any other changes. I see the LAUSD calendar actually goes to the 10th, not to the 9th, etc. And so, I don't know if there are other areas of alignment that we might want to consider or not.
All right, I will then rescind my motion. I'd like to make a motion to table this until the next board meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's from Frank. All in favor? Frank?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Pete?
yes.
Katrin?
Yes.
Motion tabled. Moving on to item E. I would like to make a motion to combine sub-items A through E into one motion. This is the approval of the per diem rate payments for spring campsite administrator duties from March 25th through the 24th for the following employees: Angel Trong, Biggie Schulcher, Kirsten Paul, Biggie and Casey for a half day on March 28th, and then Casey Jones for March 29th. Do I have a second?
Second.
That's from Frank. All right, go ahead, Biggie.
It's the same as we had for winter break and holiday camp. Since this is not usual or regular work time for any of the people listed here, in years prior, we've done payment at the per diem rate for the person who did the administrator day on campus, because ARC, who is running the camps, cannot be on campus by themselves. It always needs an administrator on campus. And the camp is from 7:30 in the morning, which means opening up at 7 o'clock to 4:30 in the afternoon.
Questions, comments, Frank?
No, no questions, no comments.
Sam?
Nope.
Pete?
Nope.
Katrin?
None from me either.
All right. All in favor? Frank?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Katrin?
Yes.
That is a yes for me as well. We will now be moving back to the ED report, item A. Go ahead, Casey and Biggie.
It starts as always with the enrollment update. I'll make that very quick. We are at 440 students as of right now, which means 10 students over budget compared to what was budgeted. For this school year, we are at 95.3% attendance rate at the end of month 6, which is above the 95% that is budgeted, but it will still increase a little bit because we still have outstanding independent study contracts. Once those are cleared, the attendance rate should go up a little bit. We have been accepting lottery applications since January 8th, and we will be accepting through this week, Friday. That's the deadline. At this point, we have received 236 applications, and you can see how they are split up. Compared underneath, I put how many applications we received last year. The ones that I put in red are lower than last year. So you can see we've received more transitional kindergarten applications, but at this point, less kindergarten applications, less for 2nd grade, less for 4th, less for 6th, and less for 7th grade. Still a week or a little under a week to go. And hopefully we will get close to the number of applications that we've received last year. This is just an overview where those students are with regards to grade level. The 440 students gives us a 24.44 average class size. For Prop 39, there's an update that we received the preliminary offer on March 1st, and the offer is for our current footprint and 50% of the shared spaces. And we have started the conversations about the alternative agreement to increase the number of classroom spaces. Ideal would be that we can receive 3 below-the-line classrooms in exchange for most of our shared use space. And the next step is that we will receive the final offer from the district by April 1st. With regard to campus safety, we are still meeting with the campus safety committee. With regard to the Buzzergate update, we can say that the district sent people that did the wiring for the new camera system in the office. That has been completed, and they sent us a message that was included in the public records request because it just came in on the 15th, that the new gate is tentatively scheduled to be built this week, but it has to be galvanized and all sorts of things have to be done in order to mount it. And the last sentence on the email was that LAUSD projects that the camera system, the new one, will be installed, and therefore the project will be completed by June. So unfortunately, still about 2 months to go until they complete the installation. We talked about the Ring camera last time, and we received the mounting pieces, but it didn't fit the way it has to be mounted because it cannot be mounted permanently. The way that it was, what we thought would fit in order to install it between the at the gate between the single pieces there. It didn't work, and we've ordered new installation pieces, and hopefully they will be received in the next couple of days, and then we will be able to mount the camera. We've had the Ring camera for about 3 weeks now. It took a while to get that mounting, those mounting pieces, and then one of the pieces didn't fit or didn't work the way we thought it should work. So we're still working on that.
They're interviewing the 2 people again?
I'm sorry, Biggie, if we could just pause for a second.
Sure.
A few questions. So the last update, and it's, I see Tim still here. So the last update was we were going to install a Ring camera, which we had received the authorization from LAUSD to mount on their, obviously their door. So I understand.
We never talked to LAUSD about the Ring camera because it would not be mounted permanently.
Permanently, exactly. It's temporary,
Correct.
so they have no
Correct.
conflict. Correct.
Correct.
So just so I understand it clearly, the mounting equipment that came out of the box is not sufficient, and we are now in the process of getting new mounting equipment.
Correct. So it's a case that the camera will be put in, and that case is here, and that case fits. But the equipment that we ordered to fix the case on the gate, that didn't work the way we had envisioned it, and it didn't hold stable, and it didn't hold safe. So we needed to find some other mounting pieces to make sure that the camera is fixed on the gate.
Okay, so I understand from LAUSD the date to install their camera is not to exceed June 30th, 2024. Is that correct? As of this point?
The wording in the notification was that the project is scheduled to be completed by June.
Okay,
There
so that's
wouldn't
June.
be a date in June, but by June.
Okay, so I think what Tim and I'm sure other parents on the safety committee are looking for exactly when this will be done. So we've gotten notification that it will be done by June 30th. And if something changes, you'll come back to us. When can you give me a date that the Ring camera will be installed?
I hope that
we should be able to have that done by Friday now that we know the correct mounting pieces that we need.
Okay, Casey.
Yeah.
If you need 2 weeks, you can have 2 weeks. We just need a date. Are you sure it's going to be done Friday?
Let's say by the beginning of school after spring break.
All right, what is that? What is that? What is that date?
April 2nd is the first day back after spring break.
Okay, so the board is going to hold you guys to it.
Yeah.
All right. If there are any other, does the board members have any other questions on campus safety? Frank?
No, I refrain from commenting. Thank you.
Sam?
You covered it. Thanks.
Pete?
I'm good, thanks.
Katrin?
No questions. Thank you.
All right, let's please continue on to the next item, which is the board election update.
Correct. So we have one open board position for the next 2 years. It's a parent representative to the Board of Trustees, and the elections are usually held in May, and they will follow the same format as in past years. Board members, the representatives from the parent community are always elected for 2 years. The term begins in July or July 1st, and the positions are staggered. So one position is ending this June, and the other position started this past July and will go through June of 25. So we would like to send out announcement for interested parents after spring break. The board would authorize the election, and instead, since we don't have an executive director right now, I would be the person receiving the self-nominations or applications, and then we would go through the process, and candidates would be announced to the community in May and then start their term on July 1st. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention that that's coming up.
Thank you, Biggie. Please continue.
And then I had that on the agenda last month. The Form 700 filing has to be completed by April 2nd. You should have received to your goethe-charterschool.org email address an email from the LA County Board of Supervisors with regard to Form 700. Please make sure that you find that email. If you did not receive it, then we need to reach out so that they can resend it. The deadline to submit the form is April 2nd of this year. Please reach out to me if you have not received the email.
All right, shifting gears a little bit to give an update on our International Baccalaureate Primary Years Program reauthorization visit that we had last week. Our visiting team included 2 educators from around the world. We had one who was actually coming from Germany but works on the East Coast, and then one who currently works in Brazil. They conducted class observations, meetings with stakeholders, and reviewed all of our schools' primary years program documents. So again, this is just for the elementary school grades. They identified a lot of strengths within our school and within our primary years program. For example, just to name a few, our purpose is aligned with the International Baccalaureate's purpose and vision. The international mindedness was really internalized by the entire community, from students and staff out through our families. And they also really wanted to highlight the collaboration and reflection that they saw as apparent across students and staff and all of the work that we're doing here, but in particular with the improvement plans that we have been implementing this year for student support. They also identified some suggestions for next steps, and they really wanted to emphasize that there were no concerns with anything they saw here or with any of the documents that we submitted, and that these next steps are really just to help us with our continuous improvement journey as a school. And so they recommended some things that were in line with what were on our next steps as well, which is the continued work with our multi-tiered systems of support, which is that MTSS, but also to really look carefully at how we can incorporate the use of the IB programs resources within our own professional development and plans for moving forward with our learning and understanding of the primary years program as a whole. The final report will be available to us in about 6 weeks, so kind of a similar timeline as with our oversight report. But overall, the visiting team was really just amazed at our school and really enjoyed their time with all of the different individuals that they got to visit with over the course of their 2 days. And then our IB coordinator, Angel Trong, she spearheaded the visit and all of the preparation of the documents leading up to the visit. And so we really want to just highlight and thank Ms. Trong for all of her work on the reauthorization visit. And then we've got
quick question. Sorry, that'll help us with the MYP years, right? To get reauthorized with the flying colors, right?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then we've got a number of events coming up throughout the end of this school year. So we're doing another movie night in April on the 5th. We've got our lottery coming up on April 9th, which we just talked about. We have our 3rd big school visit for our program, and that's with WASC, which is the Western Association for Schools and Colleges. We've got a mid-cycle visit that's happening in mid-April. That's another 2-day visit where we've needed to submit a lot of our documents for them to review prior to them coming onto campus. So it'll follow a similar format to the IB reauthorization visit that we had. We have our gala and auction coming up on May 4th. We'll have a second book fair at the end of May that coincides with our International Flair, which will be on Friday, May 31st. And then transitioning us to our iReady assessment data from the second administration. So just a big overview first of the data. So the mid-year assessment shows that we've got similar results as to our prior years in both our ELA and math. However, our results for this year are better than our results from last year. We've got a higher percentage of students who are meeting and exceeding in reading and math overall than we did last year at this time. So that's really great. We also are seeing that the growth towards students' annual growth goal is on track. We do have higher growth in terms of reading when you compare that with math. But all of our student groups are showing improvement. And then with reading, our students in special education and our Black and African American student groups have actually the highest median growth towards their progress towards their annual growth goal. And then in math, we've got pretty similar growth trends across all of our student groups. For our students who are identified as needing Tier 3 support, so these are students in need of the most intervention, they're continuing to get intervention services during the school day from their classroom teacher, but also through intervention push-in from an additional teacher as well. So diving into the data, first we'll look at reading. On the left-hand side, you have the beginning of the year iReady data from August, and then on the left-hand side is the August data, and then on the right-hand side is the February data. I put at the bottom so you could just get a reference point from where we were last year. So the bottom will show August of 2022 and February of 2023 underneath the current year's data. But you can see we're making really great progress in terms of our overall placement for students. So we've really increased the number of students who are in that Tier 1, which is meeting or exceeding their grade level standards for this point of the year. And we've cut in half in reading the number of students who are at risk for Tier 3, which is 2 or more grade levels below. So we went from 21 down to 10%. And then our Tier 2 numbers stayed pretty similar, but we did drop a few percentage points there from 35 to 33. When we look at the growth goals now, so that last slide was placement in regards to standards for the midpoint of the year. This data here shows the progress towards their growth goals. So every student has an annual growth goal and a stretch growth goal. The annual growth goal is what we expect them to do within the year, and then the stretch growth goal is something to push for beyond a single year's growth. And so this all shows the annual typical growth goal data. So when we look at grade level comparisons for reading, you can see we've got our median progress is really high across most grade levels. Understandably, kindergarten and grade 1, who are really learning those foundational skills at the beginning of the year, have slower progress than our upper grades. But we do have our intervention teachers supporting specifically in those primary grades to help our students, particularly in kindergarten and grade 1 with their literacy skills. The percent met means that's the percentage of students who at this, well, not this point, but as of February had already met their end of year growth goal. So you can see we've got pretty good numbers there across the grade levels as well. On the right-hand side, that top bar chart shows the percentage of students who have made a certain amount of progress towards their end of year goal. So this 100% met means we have 46% of students who have already met their end of year typical growth goal and are now working on their stretch growth goal. What we would like to see is that we've got the majority of our students in this 40 and above category. So for reading, when you calculate all of that together, we've got 63% of our students are already either on track for meeting their growth goal by the end of the year or have already met it. And then for reading, the median progress towards annual typical growth is 80%.
Casey, I'm just going to pause.
Yeah.
We're running up on the candidate section of the meeting. If I could just ask the board members, do you have any questions about the reading section? And we can pick this up at our next meeting. Frank?
No, let's move on with the agenda and let's honor the context. But this looks great. I have questions, but I can table them.
Okay. Sam?
Same. I'm okay to move on without questions today.
Pete?
I can move on as well.
Okay. Katrin?
Same here.
Excellent. So just know, Casey, that next time we might have to just revisit the reading section because I definitely had a few questions about kindergarten. So
Absolutely.
All right. So at this point, the board will be, we will have presentations for executive director candidates. Before we get into that, the last few days, a few questions and concerns and comments were raised by the parent community on our process and our approach to this, to our search process for the executive director. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking about it. And Frank, I know you're going to keep me on time, but just so you know, I've padded the agenda so that we have enough time to do this and plus hear from all the candidates. We were notified of the previous executive director's intent to retire last year. We went through a process of hiring an outside firm. We interviewed, I think, close to 4 to 6 agencies, and we settled on Agility because just of their record and their professionalism. And Christina's here, and they're pretty awesome. But we also wanted to make sure that, due to the different factors of making such a big decision, that we hired a third party to facilitate this process for us. We began with a search committee that was put together with board members, faculty, teachers, and also a couple of representatives from the parent community. The search committee was assembled, I believe, last October, and during that process, the search committee facilitated stakeholder interviews and helped build the candidate profile and the job description for the executive director. Christina, correct me if I'm wrong, but the position officially went, it was advertised and launched in October. Is that correct? Oh, I think you're on mute. Anyway, I think she's saying yes, October. And we received, I would say, close to 70 or 80 candidates. We went through several rounds, which included, this thing is really getting on my, which included vetting and phone calls with Agility and the candidates. And then we conducted another round of an interview with the search committee, which led us to the final candidates. And so at this point, I just want to be super duper clear on what, the timeline and what's happened. About 6-7 weeks ago, in the middle of January, our administrators for Goethe requested with the board that they propose an alternative to the executive director position. And they wanted to make us a proposal on what that alternative would be and how it would be facilitated with the resources of the organization as it stands today, or what resources would be required. Now, I feel like these are a couple of great administrators. We love them to death. They love our kids. And at that time, the board decided that, in good faith and with the fact that, based on their great service to the organization, if they wanted to make an alternative proposal to the board, that we should allow them to do so. However, as you probably already know, many of you, that these administrators were also on the search committee. So after reviewing the matter with the board and our consultants, it was decided that, look, we want the best options for Goethe, and we also want to make sure that we acknowledge internal talent if they want to throw their hat in the ring. So once we communicated that with the internal candidates, it was made clear that they would be taken out of the search committee. They would be, from a security standpoint, they would be all their documents, and it was all online on the cloud. So they lost access to all materials that they had before on the candidates that had applied. And we also wanted to make sure that they went into a similar process with the other candidates, with the knowledge that they are not applying for the same job. And so I just want to be abundantly clear about that. You will hear today 2 candidates who have applied and are the final list of candidates for the executive director position for Goethe, which is what we originally hired Agility Consulting to facilitate for us. The board made the decision 6 weeks ago that, you know what, we have internal candidates. Let's also put them in this process and make it easier for Agility to manage it, take it out of the board's direct hands and responsibilities, and allow us to gather similar data points and similar feedback from a similar type of process. Now, the third presentation that will be made today, not from the external candidates, will be from the internal candidates on what that proposal and the feasibility and the practicality of their option would be. We deliberated on this for a while, and at the time, and I stood, you know, I'm playing Monday morning quarterback. I do not think there would have been a easier or more efficient way to handle this process. However, we do acknowledge that we should have done a better job at communicating it to the parent community. And that is ultimately falls on me, and that's my responsibility. I know a lot of you felt like some of the meet and greets and the town halls were a little rushed. That was also problematic because of spring break, and we had constraints with space. You know, I understand the NPR was flooded, so there were just a few things logistically that we couldn't do to make the process much smoother. But I will tell you some of the things I'm super excited about. I'm super excited that there's so many parents on this call. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of energy around the candidates, internal and external. Everyone is very, very happy, I think, with the candidates that are presenting, or if you're not, you know, we look forward to your feedback. The board will review, you know, all the material. Yes, there have been a few missteps from a communication standpoint. I mentioned to Eric, we had that little typo on, you know, here's the recording and you should have submitted it 15 minutes earlier. So, you know, we continue to make mistakes, but we're going to get better at it. But I think we've got a good pool of finalist candidates externally, and I'm looking forward to the presentation from Casey and Biggie on their option on what it looks like for co-leadership role that they want to present. Anyway, at that point, I'd like to pause. I'd like to give the board members each a minute to reflect as well. Frank?
I have an open mind. I think it's prudent to look at internal candidates as well. I can't speak to the communication issue, but I acknowledge, the discomfort. And I really want to hear now from the candidates. That's my main point. Thank you.
Sam?
Thanks. I really wanted to echo the thanks to the parent community for your engagement in this. My first introduction to the candidates was on the town hall that I know many of you were on, and I saw some of you this morning at the meet and greet for Vicki and Casey, and I'm so impressed with the questions that the parent community has come with, and the time that you're all spending, including tonight, to be part of this. And I really am grateful for your engagement. I think it's such an important part of our process. So thank you.
Pete?
I too have a completely open mind about what we're about to do. And I would urge that everyone else has that as well. And to always bear in mind that sometimes what's best for the kids is a little uncomfortable for the adults.
Katrin?
I was, along with Yasir, part of the hiring committee, and as a parent board representative, I too am happy to see this level of parental engagement, and also the students were very engaged as we had the candidates on their site visit and speak to students in various classes. So it's wonderful to see how involved we all are. We've been very busy with the search, like Yasir said, since October of last year, and I am happy and excited to be where we are tonight with the final presentations. That said, certain things could have run smoother from a communication standpoint. I too want to acknowledge that. Unfortunately, it didn't. But that said, I think all in all, I do want to thank the other members of the search committee. We've all put in really long hours outside of our regular jobs, and sometimes until pretty late at night, to deliberate, to make sure we select the best possible candidates for this really important role. I personally have a second grader, so I definitely have stake in the game. I want our school to be led by the right leader, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the candidates tonight.
Thank you, Katrin. All right, Christina, would you like to start the introduction and introduce Sagi?
I would love to. Christina Greenberg, nice to meet all of you. I am with Agility Consulting. You've probably seen me or my colleague Nora, or maybe both of us at different points around campus. Nice to see everyone. Wanted to introduce our first candidate, Sagi, who I'll let her introduce herself in just a moment. But before we do, board members, could we just hear from each of you, since you're here as our panelists this evening, your name, how long you've been with the board, and your connection to Goethe? And then I'll hand it over to Dr. Doring to take it from here. Sam, can you go first?
Sure. I'm Samantha Eisner. I've been on the board of trustees. This is my third year of service. I have a fourth grader. We've been at Goethe since he was in kindergarten. And so we've been part of the community since then. So I think I joined the board in his second grade year.
And just
Frank,
pop
go ahead.
someone else. Yeah, go ahead.
Frank?
I'm Frank Boytine. I'm one of the last one of the original founders of the school. I've been here from the beginning, and I have multiple roles. Currently, I serve at the pleasure of the board as the treasurer of the board and run the finance committee meeting. I had multiple kids going through the school, but they're all turned out now. Thank you.
Katrin?
Katrin Kaler. I joined the board about 3 years ago at the same time as Sam did. And like I said, I have a second grader, Sawyer, in 2B. And yeah, I've been part of the search committee. I think that's it.
Pete?
I'm Pete Goldschmidt. I've been part of this board for somewhere between Sam and Frank. Not exactly sure. I once had a daughter who attended for a while, and that's pretty much it.
All right. Yasir Julian Eftekar. I've been serving as board president, at the pleasure of the board, for about 4 years. All three of my kids attended Goethe, and they no longer do, but we miss the school dearly. I'm and my family are still very passionate about it, and we love the community and the kids and the teachers. And I know the board shares my feelings on the fact that, you know, as Katrin said, this is a volunteer position, but we are passionate about this program, and we want to make this program successful for the next 20 years. So we're super excited to talk to Sagi tonight. Let you take over.
Yeah, so feel free to introduce yourself. I know you've prepared a presentation. We'd love to see it. I'll give you just a quick, it's 15 minutes. I'll give you just a quick sign when we're getting close to 15 minutes, so you know. And then the board, I'm sure, will have follow-up questions for you or comments afterwards. Go ahead.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for having me. I am very excited to present myself and excited to present what I have. I first off really want to thank everyone for participating in this hiring process. It's been a great experience, having been there on Thursday, meeting with the children, the teachers, the parents, the staff, the admin team. Has just been a very good experience. And of course, my favorite part of it was meeting with the children as the focus group. They had very interesting and good questions to ask. So it was really a good experience. I have been in education for 23 years. 13 of those years have been in administration. There's obviously been an overlap with my teaching as well, but I was in the classroom for 12 plus, and I say plus because I am continuously taking students under my wing and mentoring them to continue to grow. So 12 plus years in teaching, administration in various different sectors, from K through 12, private, public, charter, non-traditional private, special education, and graduate level.
Great. And yeah, feel free to go ahead with your presentation. Do we have sharing enabled?
I do not. Well, give me 1 second. No, I do not.
Whoever's the host, can we open it up for sharing?
It looks like it's
Should work now.
open.
Oh, there we go. It is now
Yeah.
open. Yes.
Okay, great. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Actually, hang on,
Sure.
Siggy, just before you start, we have a lot of people in this meeting. I just want to tee it up for you. So one of the things that the board asked of the final candidates is to prepare a high-level presentation on the strategic priorities for Goethe based on their assessment. And just keep in mind, these are candidates, so they don't have an in-depth assessment as much as Frank would or I would. But to give us really what's called an artifact and something that we can look at and say, okay, this kind of makes sense. We understand how your process is working, how your process would impact our organization, where you see this organization moving forward, how you see it moving forward based on the feedback you've had, based on the people you've talked to, the interaction with our program. So those presentations are going to be made by our 2 external candidates. Really a strategic template per se, but there might be mistakes in it. I'm just letting you guys know because this is not someone who's actually in the day-to-day. So it's really, again, as Christina calls it, it's an artifact to help the board sort of formulate, the process and this candidate and how they perceive moving this organization forward. Go ahead, Siggy.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen again. Let's make sure that this is perfect. Thank you, Yasir. Yes, I was going to start with just quickly going through what we had been asked, performance task agenda. There were 5 items in that performance tasks that I will be covering through this presentation. And we will begin with the connection to the mission, my story, going on to what I see as strategic priorities, and moving on to what my needs would be from the Board of Trustees, how I would gain buy-in, and finally, what assumptions I have made thus far about the school. Again, thank you so much, because true, we are not there in the day-to-day, but definitely we were able to gauge to see, what the needs might be as we move into the position. So I do want to start with the connection to the mission and my story as I connect to Goethe International Charter School. This school's mission is to create a multilingual and international educational environment that advances the knowledge, critical thinking, and personal development of our students and prepares them to be self-motivated citizens who will thrive in the global world. This mission truly resonates with who I am, not just as an educator, but even as a human being, as a woman in leadership, and as a Hispanic woman in leadership as well. Given that I am multilingual, I speak English and Spanish, both formally, and I appreciate the mission because to create a multilingual and international education environment that advances the education of children is powerful. I say it from my own experience in learning 2 languages. I actually was immersed in my primary years for 3 years in an all Spanish speaking school. Having never attended a Spanish speaking school, it was difficult at first. It was a tough experience, but it was one that I will never look back with regret because it taught me not only to speak the language, but to formally be educated in the language, something that my parents pushed for when learning Spanish. It was not just going to be Spanglish, as we know it, but actually being formally educated to speak Spanish in the formal way. So being multilingual definitely resonates with who I am, communicating effectively in 2 languages and connecting that, learning, the developing of that language opened up a way for me to also enter into a new community and a new culture of people, by speaking the language and being able to communicate effectively with people. This has definitely allowed me now as an educator to build bridges. And I call it building bridges between communities, because oftentimes when there is a difficulty in understanding one or the other language, people don't fully comprehend what one community is thinking or the other. But having and being able to speak both languages has allowed me to bring two groups of people together, especially in the educational arena, and help them move in the same direction. My professional reach and networks obviously has expanded, being able to reach to the Spanish-speaking community as well, and being able to work with other colleagues who are bilingual. This has carried on in my personal life as well. As I mentioned during my meetings with the focus groups, I did encourage my daughter as well to be trilingual, actually. And it is very interesting. When I first read about the mission of the school, I was just, in awe, because she's trilingual and she's fluent in Spanish, English, and German. So it is something that's very powerful. I'm very happy to have empowered her with those skills. And so I'm a firm believer in it. As far as the IB program, the advancement of knowledge, critical thinking, inquiry, and well-rounded education, and incredible, honestly. It is a very powerful way to educate children. It is, again, a mission. That part of the mission resonates with me, because I've always been a believer that children, we talk a lot about, allowing children to develop their full potential, but what does that full potential mean? And allowing them and providing them a space and a culture, a curriculum, opportunities for learning that allow for higher level thinking skills, and for them to participate as leaders in their community and get to also be open to learning about other cultures is powerful. It's something that you don't quite often see, but educating the children in this way will not only prepare them for their high school years or even their college years, but for life. Something that we want them to be well equipped, develop that global perspective at a young age, and then be able to, of course, exercise what they have gained in their adult years. So the connection to the mission, I love it. Can say my path, as I mentioned, as an educator and as a person, it resonates with me. Item 2 was some of the strategic priorities that I see. And, just from what I was able to glean from the information that I read, the people that I spoke to, board meetings that I watched, just the 4 top priorities that I see right now that are urgent are, number 1, in that order, facilities and finances. Number 2, marketing and outreach. 3 is communication, and 4 is the academic quality. And here is why. So facilities and finances, what I see is solidifying relationships. If I am selected to be your new executive director, one of the tasks that I would do and tackle immediately would be solidifying those relationships and streamlining communication. So working closely with the amazing leadership team that you have right now, and establishing rhythms, primarily with the director of operations, to learn from them. I know that they've been there for a while, for a long time, which speaks also loads to the culture of the organization. So being a learner and learning from the principal, the director of operations, the administrators, the vice principals, and developing a health and positive working relationship with LAUSD and Marina Del Rey Middle School. Obviously, as a new executive director, that's going to be pivotal to my success in rolling out these priorities. Second would be developing a strategic plan with quarterly benchmarks. It's not something that I would do in a silo, but truly collaboratively work with the administrative team to develop a strategic plan for growth and expansion, and tackling what those priorities are, meaning facilities, finances, outreach, marketing, communication, and academic quality. So rethinking and redefining the use as well. I mean, it's going to take not just developing a strategic plan with quarterly benchmarks so that we're measuring our progress and, you know, reflecting to see if we are on the right path at the right time that we want to be hitting our deadlines and our benchmarks. So collaboratively working with the admin team, creating a development committee as well to collect quantitative and qualitative data through surveys and meetings, obtain board approval, and then streamline communication to the various stakeholders so that it is transparent to all and we all know where we are at in terms of moving towards the goals that we want to achieve.
Shirley, we have 7 minutes left.
Oh, okay, thank you. Rethinking and redefining the use of current the location. It's going to be very important. I know that right now for the upcoming year, there's a contract, but looking long-term as to where we want to be in year 2, year 3, and beyond, and beginning to work towards those goals. Right now, there might be a possibility even to rethink the use of the facilities to try to hit that 800 mark enrollment, and then redefining the approach to increasing the enrollment. Here again is just an idea, maybe rethinking how to maximize the space and availability, perhaps having 2 cohorts, a morning cohort, an afternoon cohort, to ensure that 96 and ensuring that 96% of attendance continues, so that we can continue to have the funding that we need to move forward. Oh, let me see. Marketing and outreach is going to be pivotal to the success of obtaining a new facility in the future. Why marketing and outreach? 1, will help us increase our enrollment. 2, for outreach, it will allow me to solidify partnerships and relationships with key stakeholders out in the community to make sure that we are developing partnerships with people who are influential and can support us in the development of these priorities. Communication, again, throughout all this process is going to be very important for us to have clear, timely, and communication that all stakeholders can understand so that there is an understanding of where we are, where we need to go, and where we are in the process to achieving those goals. Refining our messaging to outside stakeholders, bringing them as well into, the communication with either myself, the administrative team, communicating the strategic plan, again, with all stakeholders, training the staff to live out the mission and vision. And one of the, I've always been a believer in, as leaders, we need to emulate GICS philosophy and pillars, and ensuring that communication is clear, timely, again, so that we can build trust. The academic quality, as Casey was just presenting, wow, the gains that the students have made, that story needs to be told. It needs to be told to outside stakeholders. Bring them into the campus, have them tour, have them look, present our campus to communicate all of the good things that are happening at Goethe, and as well to continue to train our staff so that as people come to tour the school, it is alive, it is visible, and it is tangible even. People know what it is like to send your child to Goethe and make believers out of key stakeholders who will support us. The proposed timeline for this, obviously change and sustainable change does not happen overnight. It takes time. And the first thing, as I mentioned, year 1, I would focus my energy on establishing those healthy and positive relationships with all stakeholders, developing strategic and actionable plans, streamlining communication to make sure that we're all, moving in the same direction, and refining and enhancing academic quality and systems of support. Teachers, if there are programs that need a little bit more refining or support we need to help our teachers by supporting them, making sure that our programs are solid so that when we begin to bring in those partners in year 2, again, the school can sell itself in a sense, and we can gain those partnerships and the support from key stakeholders in order for us to develop a long-term capital fund to be able to get to where we want to be, begin to look for a new site, whether it's depending on the urgency, if we can renegotiate more time with the district. If not, it might have to be that needs to happen during year 1 rather than 2. But again, looking at our timelines and looking and staying focused on our vision to make sure that we are achieving what needs to be achieved. Year 3, of course, my hope would be that we would have some key partnerships created, expanding our marketing and outreach efforts, not just in the LA area, but beyond the LA area, become an IB and immersion model school, solidifying a contract for an alternative site, and then solidifying capital funding. One of the things that I would like to also mention, I think it's important, is as a model school, beginning to enter the field of education through publishing and getting the word out there of who, what we do and who we are, through either scholarly articles, presenting at CCSA, California Charter Schools Association conferences, and getting out to the word. I'm a huge believer in digital storytelling. I think that there's a lot of power to that. So using, the most effective strategies to bring to the community, to bring Goethe to the community, and also to bring the community into the school. Some of the needs, this is item 3 of the performance test.
Time to wrap up whenever you're done. You've got about a minute left. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Some of the needs are just, clear expectations, roles, responsibilities, making sure we understand our limitations and our opportunities, time from every stakeholder to make sure that we are present, we are showcasing the best of this school. And, again, having just overall support from the stakeholders. And how would I get buy-in? Follow through. As I mentioned in some of the focus groups, follow through is super important. Once we say something, we follow through with it and we do it. Taking a genuine interest in our people and taking a genuine interest in the community as well. I'll go ahead and move on. I don't know if I have any more time. Is that
Christina, isn't her time ending at 6:30? Am I
If
wrong?
the board, if the board doesn't have follow-up questions, then yeah, we can definitely give a little more time.
Is that okay? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
that's fine.
sorry, but Sagi, if you can just go back to that previous slide.
Sure.
Yeah, it's fine with me. Yeah, you all don't want to use. I just didn't know if the board had any clarifying questions. If not, yeah, we can use.
I think, I mean, we've got some time in closed session too. So, like if that's okay. Sagi, if you can just go back a few more slides, more. Perfect. One forward.
Okay. This one here?
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm good. Okay. Thank you. So
Okay,
we don't want to rush you. I want you to go through, if you can, go through it at your speed. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
awesome. Thank you. Yes, I know I was rushing. I wanted to stay, true to the time.
If that's okay with the board members, are you guys okay with it? Because we can do some, yep. All right, cool. Thank you guys.
Perfect. All right. So year 1, I think it's going to be very important, obviously, as a new executive director, to establish healthy and positive relationships with stakeholders within the school community and outside of the school community, whether it's LAUSD, Los Angeles offices, county offices of education, other stakeholders that we already have established relationships, and either nurturing those relationships and really also establishing positive, healthy relationships with them. That obviously is going to take that the executive director is out there in the community, introducing, being one of the faces of the school, and having the messaging down so that we can communicate the awesome things that are happening at Goethe. Developing that strategic, actionable plan and streamlining communication is going to be very important, again, in moving towards these initiatives and bringing them to fruition. It's going to be very important for everyone to know what their role is, how they can participate, and then, of course, streamlining the communication to all stakeholders so that we together as a community work together in the direction of where we want to be 3 years from now. Refining and enhancing academic quality, as I mentioned, and systems of support. I do see a lot of that amazing work already happening. We can always review, revise to make sure that we're moving in the direction that we want to make it a model IB and immersion school. And when I mean model, meaning everybody in LA knows Goethe and the awesome things that are happening so that other schools are also looking at us as a model school. Reviewing academic programs, again, focusing on IB and immersion quality. And during this time, still negotiating additional space for the facility, redefining use of space. If we are, looking at the possibilities of redefining the use of space to reach that 800 goal, and entering spheres of influence. So that will all take time during the first year. Marketing and outreach, developing a strategic plan, developing key partnerships, joining political spheres of influence, establishing community presence, increasing metric satisfaction. So example, school ratings, storytelling, taking that digital storytelling approach and creating an impact report that we can showcase when people come and tour, showing all of the awesome things that are happening in one impact report. Communication, creating trust through clear communication and follow through, recruiting GICS ambassadors, whether it's actually it should be teachers, students, having key people. So when we bring people on campus to tour what we are doing, we can have key ambassadors speak about the program from their own experience, training the staff with best practices, and of course, something that sometimes gets overlooked, and this has been my experience at schools, is the importance of customer service. Offering a celebrity experience to anyone who comes on campus so that they can not just see for themselves what is happening, but also get the full experience of what that celebrity experience means to go to Goethe. I've already spoken about academic quality, 2025 year 2, continuing to develop those partnerships in support of Goethe's growth and sustainability, continue to streamline communication, and then redefining what we want to see with the academic programs. By this year, again, depending on the urgency, do we need a site for year 2? Did we solidify? It's really going to depend on where we are. But if the need is for us to have a new site by year 2, then year 1 is going to have to focus on that. If we can push that and somehow stay where we are, right, and then continue the search, then that will be the objective for year 3. We do want to make sure that we create those key partnerships so that we can count on capital funding, outside donations, and then eventually, of course, an endowment to keep up with the facilities, new facilities. So it is important the executive director role is going to require time outside in the community, time making sure that those partnerships are being formed. Again, like I said, with potential donors, potential foundations, political figures that can support our school and what we are doing. This was my experience with a previous charter school that I had, and that is how we made it happen. It really needs, that aspect is very important in the development of a sustainable plan to ensure that that new site will come. And of course, like I said, all these plans would come to fruition. Year 3, we entered not just the world of creating, relationships with stakeholders outside, but entering the educational arena and establishing a strong presence of what we do and who we are. So the programs at Goethe and showcasing them for others to learn. And like I said, reaching to the larger community and education through presentations, publications, and continuous partnerships with other key stakeholders. Some of the needs, as I started mentioning, is really just having time to work with the various stakeholders, clear expectations of roles and responsibilities, knowing what our limitations are, but also exploring to see if there are areas of opportunities within those limitations so that we can overcome them and move in the direction that we want to move. Clear communication of initiatives is going to be very important, ongoing, weekly. I mean, this is I'm talking about daily rhythms, weekly rhythms, monthly rhythms, quarterly rhythms, so that we can get to where we need to be. Marketing and outreach, budget allocations for potential consulting fees, materials, lunch meetings, all of that obviously will be a need. Considering maybe even recruiting, if not in the near future, but long-term, a director of development. Just overall support, asking the Board of Trustees and the admin team, to work together, having my back as I develop new partnerships, working with current admin team, in the fiscal decision-making, and being open to innovative ideas. Again, another support that I will need is just the presence at traditional presence of all key stakeholders at traditional school-wide events and larger scale outreach events for donor development. And what I'm thinking about, obviously, when I talk about large scale outreach, it would be galas where we can invite keynote speakers to fundraise money. Allocate funds as well, as I mentioned, to hire a director of development, and for buy-in, formal introduction to the various stakeholders in person and via email, whether it's internal stakeholders or external stakeholders, establishing one-to-one team weekly meetings, learning from others and acknowledging obviously their professional experience. I'm not here to begin to change things and whatnot. I'm here to learn from the community as well and see what I can do as the executive director to lead the organization to be where we need to be. Taking a genuine interest in people. I know from experience that is a very important factor in the success of any leader, is really truly taking a genuine interest in people, who they are and what their story is and how they are contributing to the awesome things that are happening at Gerda, as well as our stakeholders outside. What is their story? How do they want to help? Why are they doing it? So all of that, really just bringing that human aspect to the equation. Gathering qual and quantitative data is going to be very important, looking at the metrics that we currently have, but also gathering qualitative data from the parents, from the teachers, from the administrative staff, where we want to go and what needs to be accomplished and the urgency thereof. Follow through, as I mentioned, participation in school events, small and large scale, participating in teacher and staff meetings. That will be a responsibility, of course, of the executive director to be a presence on the, in a part of the community, and remaining neutral, really, and emulating GICS values. Some of the assumptions, and again, this is just from my reading the documents, the website, the visit, some of the assumptions about our staff programs in school overall is just, I do see, and I'm very happy to see, that Gerta is a high achieving student performance program. As Casey just communicated to everyone, it's truly incredible. Having worked at other schools and seeing that data is powerful. Again, I think that that's something that it's a story to tell and to share with our community. Parent support for this innovative approach of educating children through immersion in the IB program, incredible. I got a little taste of it during my visit there on Thursday. I can see that it is like a family-like culture. Everyone's talked about, in my questions that I asked the different stakeholders, what is it like to be a part of Gerta? And everyone referred to it as a family. So it is something to be proud. It's such an asset. I do see that many people have been there long term. So it speaks a very positive and powerful story about the school. One of the assumptions that I've made too is that overall there's a good relationship with LAUSD and MDRMS. Obviously, there's conflicting values with the charter education and public district education, but nonetheless, it seems like there's a cordial and healthy relationship. I, see an area for improvement that I do see is in communication, just streamlining communication, and a need for strategic and actionable executive leadership. There's a need for a stable and sustainable site, and there's an urgent need for capital funding for long-term plans to relocate. There's also an urgent need to enter the educational arena as an IB and immersion model school that will attract, as I mentioned, key stakeholders to come and support. And the immersion program needs to be revamped. And what I gauged from my visit on Thursday is there's a need for more language teachers. Some teachers expressed, some burnout, staff is small, parent volunteers come to help make up for the lack. But again, that's something that together we can work towards to solve and just make Goethe the best place. The site needs a little bit more love as far as the physical, the aesthetics, but again, the celebrity experience that we extend to others. But again, it is something that can easily, we can train people, we can take a little bit more time to work on those. And those are just some of the assumptions that I was able to make.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Of course.
Other questions from board members before I'll ask Siggy to finish?
Greg?
Two comments, two questions. You picked up on the bandwidth issue in the school. Yeah, so it's a bandwidth issue, overwork. I like your aspirational goal of the model school. I think it's a good school. It aligns with mine, with the goals of the original founders to be the best school in the neighborhood, not in the neighborhood, however we define it. I think that's good. I do like your idea about the strategic plan, the communication update, to academic, scholastic articles. It's a great idea. I thought the cohort idea is a new idea. It's an idea we haven't thought about. It's an idea, whether this is good or bad, I can't tell, but I think it's an innovative idea. Two questions are, any experience with LAUSD, one, and two, any IB experience?
Yeah, my experience with LAUSD, and I'll be quite frank, is limited in that I worked mostly with LACO, LA County Offices of Education. I did work limited as an assistant principal with LAUSD. I'm well connected in Orange County. So, but knowing how to develop those conversations and how to navigate the educational bureaucracy, if I may, I have a lot of experience in doing that. It's not, not something that I'd be intimidated or I would have difficulty in developing those relationships and having conversations, whether, easy or difficult, with LAUSD members. As far as IB, I've never worked at an IB school. I have worked and led schools with, like I mentioned to some of the focus groups on Thursdays, rigorous AP academics. I know there is a difference. The IB brings the cultural aspect, the global perspective into it. But I'm very familiar with, more so if I may say, and in looking at IB, having that hands-on global perspective, hands-on projects, global perspective, it's something that I actually pride myself in preparing students for very higher level historical competitions where it was tough research, graduate level research, and it really reminds me of, an IB education. I'm familiar theoretically from learning about it, but not conceptually.
Okay, sorry, I hijacked all the time for all the other board members. I apologize. Please go ahead. Thank you for your response.
Sure. No problem.
Christina, what do you think? A few more board members or?
Yeah, you had said you might have other time. And I think, it's definitely, we're past time to let Siggy go and have the next people start. So we probably should wrap up.
All right. Okay, so I heard we probably should, so that's a no. So I'm going to ask, If a board member wants to ask a quick question, Sam?
More so for you, Yusir, you indicated earlier that we might have an opportunity to ask further questions during our closed session. Is
Yeah,
that
exactly.
the case?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Then with that, I'd like to respect the time of the other candidates as well to move forward.
All right, Katrin?
Same here. I will go back to my questions later during closed session.
Perfect. Pete,
And
is
just
that
so I
okay?
understand timing for my purposes, when is the closed session after all three candidates have presented? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Sagi, you're aware of that and you know to come back into closed session? Okay. All right.
Oh, no, I was not aware about coming back into the closed session. What time will that be?
After the last candidate, so after 8 p.m.
Okay, I will be there. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks.
Christina, you're gonna need to facilitate that with Sagi, you know what I mean? Like, you'll be in closed session with us, but you'll need to text her and,
That's good.
yep.
Why don't you in the chat directly to me, give me the best number for you so I can contact you when it's time.
I also know Nora's coming back, right? You guys are doing a kind of a tag team thing.
Yeah,
So
yes,
if you want to take care of that, that'd be great. Well, Sagi, thank you so much. That was so, it was interesting. I was like really looking hard at it because my eyes are terrible. I love the idea of the cohort. As Frank said, just something we haven't thought about because we always look at the chicken and the egg and, do we have enough students to ask for more space or do we get more space before we get for students? So some really eye-opening things that you raised for us and had us think about. So looking forward to talking to you in closed session. That being said, Christina.
Yeah, thanks so much. We will be in touch soon. Great. Do the board members, do you need a moment to stretch or anything? I know this is kind of a marathon session.
Yeah, give me 1 second. 1 second. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. And then Biggie and Casey, I think are next on our list.
Correct. So while Frank is coming back, I'm just going to, again, go back to that preamble that I gave. A very different proposal. It's an option on, as Biggie and Casey have said, a shared leadership role, what that would look like for the organization, the resources that would be required. So we will just hear. I'm sorry, got distracted. We're going to hear their proposal. It's going to go for about a half an hour, and then hopefully we have some time for a few questions from the board members, and we'll try to be a little faster on it.
Great. Yeah, and then the next thing is supposed to start at 7:15, just to remind us. Okay, great.
I'm back.
All right, Casey and Biggie, you have the screen.
Good evening. We're a little surprised about the now 30 minutes, so we might not even be able to fill the time, but we can obviously talk a little more because we were told that we had at most 15 minutes to present. So that was what we thought or what we put into this presentation. So as a personal story in alignment with the GICS mission, we chose this graphic to show that this is obviously two people bringing something to the table and that the table will be very balanced between the two of us. For me, with my prior experience, I really have my mission in supporting organizations to be successful. I've always done this in my previous professional career when I did management consulting. And for GICS, very similar to what Sagi just said, my goal is to always been and still is to make Goethe the most desired TK through 8 school on the West Side at this point. So I'd like to see operational excellence. I'd like to see financial stability, trust and respect amongst the stakeholders. And in our case, Casey will speak to the educational or the excellence in education. I've been here at the school for 9 years in this position of the Director of Operations. And as I just said, in my prior career, I did management consulting. I worked on trust in organizations, and my undergraduate business studies had the focus marketing and HR management.
And I have always worked at schools that had IB and dual immersion programs. So what really drew me to work at the school in the first place was really that focus on educating the whole child, not just academically, but also with their social emotional health and well-being, and giving them lots of different opportunities to take action and to go deeper with their thinking and really build those critical thinking skills. My experience has always been at all of the schools that I've worked with, that when you have collaboration and you have that teamwork, it is so vital to really becoming as successful as you can be. So when I joined Goethe in the 2015-16 school year, I was very pleased that what I expected from this IB school was here in spades, just that collaboration and that teamwork and that sense of community that goes from our staff to our students and out to our families. As I said, I've been here for the last 9 years. I started as a classroom teacher, worked in the first grade, and then I stepped out of the classroom after completing my master's in administrative leadership with a focus on social justice and education. So I did instructional coaching for a year there, where I got to be in all of the classrooms across every grade level, working really closely with our teachers and also with our students in an educational support role. Then I moved on into the role as assistant principal and did that position for several years. What was unique about me stepping into the assistant principal role here at Goethe is the setup of the admin team when I made that move was a little bit different than a traditional school. There was already another assistant principal in place, and we worked together on 2 very separate areas of the program. So my area of focus was on curriculum instruction. And then as I moved into the role of principal, that continued to grow even further. Again, my entire career has really been at schools that really value students as individual people, but also students as part of a larger community and the staff as a larger part of the community as well. So what we have put together goes in alignment with what our students are doing throughout the year as well. So we've put together our perspective on looking ahead at the next 3 years and what the 2 of us we envision we could do as a team to fulfill these steps. So we're starting with where we currently are, and then just as our students have their annual growth goals through their academic program, we have identified some typical growth goals, but also some stretch growth goals for the school to help us get to meet that long-term vision that is outlined in the school's current strategic plan. We have identified 4 key areas, 4 priority areas, the foundation of which is going to be academic excellence. And so really looking at our schools Goethe exclusive school achievement measures in order to continue with our data analysis to guide our decision making and work on that continuous improvement of the program school-wide. But also really looking at the refinement of both our immersion and our acquisition programs, as well as continuing with our work on our multi-tiered systems of support with a special focus on our academic intervention and also our social emotional support for students. We really identified this as being kind of the foundation for the other strategic priority areas, because without that strong academic program, then we wouldn't necessarily be able to deliver on all of the following steps.
And building on that academic excellence, the second priority area that we've identified is marketing. We will need to create more brand awareness beyond the just local area of around the school. We would like to, or we need to look into creating and implementing and follow through with a comprehensive marketing plan so that the school is not just known around here and not just the program, but also the performance level and everything that makes the school a very special place. Marketing needs to be looked at in the context of enrollment, so to potential families, but also for staffing and internal as well as external supporters, because we want to be a school of choice for good educators, and we also want to be a school that that external supporters would be interested in supporting and helping to grow. We would like to work on the website or think that the website needs some revamping in regards to reflecting the compliance pieces that we need to have on there, but also the school's achievements, a very clear outlining of the programming, and all that in a format that is easy to navigate. We also think that a very high strategic priority area is the funding. We are working very well in the financial area right now, and our budget or our financial framework always should be a balanced budget. However, we think that one strategic priority needs to prioritize external funding opportunities with grants, with corporate donors, with foundation that would bring more money to the table than we can create or produce with just the internal fundraising. However, those efforts definitely need to be maintained, and we see the need to work towards a competitive payment and benefit system for the staff, because compared to other schools, we are still a little behind on the competitive payments for staff, and therefore maybe not always the first choice for employment for really good educators out there. We definitely need to pursue the financial basis for a facilities plan. However, in our in our opinion, the three goals that we just spoke about, academic excellence, the marketing, which means also specifically the brand awareness, and the funding will be the three main goals in order to achieve the goal of facilities. In that regard, at the moment, we need to navigate the current political landscape at LAUSD that is around Prop 39, which means in that regard, we will look into lottery priorities change within the charter renewal. And then we definitely need to partner with charter-focused development institutions to develop a long-term plan for facilities options. However, that, as we've always said, is not possible with just the 450 students that we have at this point. The school needs to follow a growth plan in order to be able to have the funding and the sustained income or revenue path from student attendance. As identified needs for these strategic priority areas, we have an organizational restructuring, because obviously, as principal and director of operations right now, if we were to step out into the role of the executive director, even if it's combined amongst us, there will be some tasks that we cannot fulfill in the way we are doing them right now. So therefore, there will be the need for an organizational restructuring. There will be the need of additional staff in identified areas. And in order to do the big work on marketing and brand awareness, we will need some budget allocated to it, as right now the marketing expenses have been always on the lower end. So there has to be some put aside in the budget in order to do that outreach and that presence in the area, so that we can do more fundraising in order to get better financial stability and better financial means in regards to facilities.
And then in terms of really making sure that we're succeeding with that academic excellence, we would need to provide really clearly identified professional development plans for our staff that include not only the academic pieces, but also supporting students socially and emotionally across all those areas where we are seeing more and more of our students needing additional supports. We also know that we've been through a lot over the last couple of years, and so really refocusing on our organizational culture. So who we are as a staff, how we support each other, how we show up for each other in these times where there is a lot going on and it can get challenging. So really recommitting to improving that culture amongst our staff. And then finally, we've got our charter renewal coming up. And so continuing to work as we have in years past, not only closely with our charter school division representatives, but also with our legal team and our consulting team for support with drafting that charter renewal that's going to address some of the key changes that we would like to make. So looking at the restructuring of our organization, we've highlighted two key areas that would be new positions that we would want to be added to our organization. On my end, there would be a school counselor. We currently do not have a school counselor on staff, but contract out, and those services are currently only available for students who receive special education services. So we would like to expand that to help meet the needs of our students who are in the general education program, as we've seen, particularly since returning from COVID, and also with our expansion to middle school, that there's a great need for our students to have someone who's here regularly on campus to talk with them, to help them process things that they're going through, and who's trained specifically to do that. Currently, a lot of that work is done by myself and by our fantastic admin team and our wonderful teaching staff, but we really see the need for more of our students to have more time with someone outside of the classroom for this. Additionally, although it's not highlighted because we technically have 2 people filling these roles this year, although the format is not 2 full positions, are the assistant principal positions. We currently have 2 assistant principals on staff. However, their responsibilities only do half a day of assistant principal work, and the other half they are in the classroom doing instruction. And so while we have 2 individuals, there's still only 1 assistant principal role that is being filled this year. It's just shared amongst the 2, along with those teaching pieces. And so in order to provide myself with more space and more time to do that longer planning work, and also to build those connections outside of our school community, a lot of the day-to-day tasks that I'm responsible for currently would transition to the 2 assistant principals who would be working full-time as assistant principal. Our delineation of responsibilities for those 2 would be 1 assistant principal focusing on the lower primary grades, so TKK through 3rd, the other focusing on our upper elementary and middle school grades 4th through 8th, but then also each of them having a specific focus outside of those grade levels, which would be special ed coordination on one side, and then coordination of our middle school program on the other.
And on the side of the director of operations.
Hey, sorry, Biggie, just really quick before we move on, just so I'm clear on this slide. The reds are the new resources, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then Casey, you mentioned the assistant principal, the 2 assistant principals. That is the, halftime, right? So you're now speaking of the stopgap that we implemented. We don't have an ED right now. Is that correct?
No, because we don't have a German teacher in 3rd and 4th grade. Each of those assistant principals teach for half the day. One of them teaches the 3rd graders in German immersion, and the other one teaches the 4th graders in German immersion. So they basically have a half-time teaching position and a half-time assistant principal position right now.
This is 2.5 FTE.
Got it. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Becky.
No, it's good that we're talking about it. So there would be the need or the plan to have one additional person in the office. The current employee in the office, she has been very good in learning the things that we do in regards to finances and in regards to little projects that have come up in the office. And we would like to move her more into doing even more of the financial pieces that are on my, that I'm doing right now still. And then also supporting in fundraising efforts in projects that are coming up, and then having someone else being the person who covers the phone and the buzzer and the students that come into the office because of little injuries or not feeling well, or so that there would be one additional person in the office to support what I would be doing. A lot of my daily tasks that I'm fulfilling have been already some of the tasks of the executive director, because I've worked very closely with Dr. Jones when he was there. The difference is that I'm now basically finishing those tasks when before we worked together and he would finish the tasks by approving things or by sending in reports or by sending in applications. But we've already worked together very closely beforehand, so that there are some daily tasks that I would be able to give to someone different in the office that would then give me the opportunity to do some of the long-term planning with regards to specifically marketing in the first place, and then with the funding and the planning of new options for facilities.
So looking at our stakeholder engagement, we really want to increase the opportunities for access and community, for campus access and community interaction. One thing that has become abundantly clear from our observations, but also from the feedback from our families over the last several years as we've returned to campus, is the deep impact that not being able to be on campus on a regular basis has had on families being able to build connections and relationships amongst each other, which then results in whether people feel connected to the school and what's going on, and support efforts that are happening here at the school. So what we would like to do is have our family fun run, which is now going twice a week, happen daily, so that campus is open in the mornings for our families as it was pre-COVID. With some additional safety measures in place, to have grade level dinners twice throughout the year. So we do grade level dinners at the beginning of the year as a get to know you, the families at your grade level, but we would like to do those again in the second semester as well. Increasing our community universities to be every other month instead of just 4 times a year, which is how we currently have them. Making our monthly coffee chats with the admin team on campus. We just started doing that again with the last month, and it really was wonderful to see so many people stick around after the morning running club to just interact and get to know the updates. Also increasing parent engagement nights to be twice throughout the year as well. At the beginning of the year with our back to school night presentations, we always do a parent engagement night to give some information on how the school operates and what is happening throughout the year. And so doing a second parent engagement night to remind everyone of this as we are entering the second semester would be a way to help increase the community interaction there. We also would continue with our policy of having an open door and promptly responding to emails, really making sure that our families know where to find us, whether it is a big question or a small question, a big concern, a small concern, but just being readily available there.
Then obviously I would specifically work on some of the stronger public presence with regard to outreach activities. Casey would do the same thing. We would either go together or share the duties depending on what the topics are. But we both have very good connections already to LAUSD, the different areas there or different departments like the Charter School Division as well as the Prop 39 office. GABA is the German American Business Association. They have monthly business mixers that we would like to attend. GASA is the German American School Association that we have very good connections with. The consulates, the Delray Neighborhood Council, Goethe Institute, and the LAX Coastal Chamber of Commerce. All those institutions have meetings and events that we would like to go to in order to meet other people and also identify potential supporters from the corporate world. And then as Casey mentioned before, staff has been very great in going through COVID and also now in this year specifically with all the specific visits that we've had from the IB and the LAUSD, now upcoming WASC. There was a lot of extra work for staff and also the staff shortages that we've had this year. So everybody really pulled very strongly in one direction, and it felt very good to be a part of this group of people who work together. And we would like to keep that momentum going. We want to increase the motivation and the team building by really doing things together with the staff. We have a Sunshine Committee. They organize these happy hours monthly, but we also would like to do even more in order to increase the staff motivation and the team spirit amongst our staff.
And then we also feel really strongly that having a strong presence on campus throughout the school day and at our school events is really important as well. When you're there at morning drop-off, afternoon pickup, at the different activities and events that we have, it just provides another opportunity and avenue for families to engage with us and for us to engage with families and kind of hear how things are going and get some unofficial feedback, some official feedback, but really just being accessible all throughout the school year on campus. So the key action items that we have identified as the goals over the next 3 years are these 4 areas that we've listed here. So with curriculum development, we've done a lot of work over the years recently on looking specifically at our math program, and it is time for us to do the same work with our literacy resources and our literacy program. And that's both across our English language arts, but as well as our German language arts, both immersion and acquisition. Additionally, we're getting into the groove with our middle years program, but there's still work to be done to really refine those subject area unit plans to make sure that they're ready for our middle years authorization that we're looking ahead to. And also the implementation of the community project, which is the 8th grade culminating project. It's a service learning unit that students go through in 8th grade. So getting that implemented in a way that is sustainable year after year for our 8th graders. Additionally, I've mentioned a couple times already this evening is really focusing on the implementation of our multi-tiered systems of support. Our staff has been going through professional development training over the last 2 years in these areas. And so the next step is to really look closely at what our school is doing to support our students across different levels of necessary support, but also in different areas, specifically focusing on our intervention and also the expanded learning opportunities so that we're tackling support for students during the school day, as well as outside of our traditional school hours, whether that's in the after-school program or in our camp or summer school experiences.
From an enrollment perspective, we would like to open a second TK section, not this upcoming school year, but the year after, which then would make it a total of 20 classes, 2 at each grade level, with about 500 students in the 25-26 school year, which is also the year that we need to do our charter renewal. So all what Casey just mentioned and what is here with the enrollment plan might seem very nitty-gritty, but it's very important to get the charter renewed because that is what LAUSD will be looking at, a very steady and realistic path of how enrollment goes. And then for the charter renewal document, we would create a projected path for a realistic enrollment growth to between 700 and 800 students in order to make the next step possible to get our own facility.
And speaking of charter renewal, there are 2 areas that we feel are really key to being able to have a sustainably successful program year after year, and then also as we continue to grow and expand. The first would be refinement of our immersion and acquisition language programs. The acquisition program was started in 2016 and has been working really well, but we've seen a big change in our student demographics over the years. And now that we've had that program in place for several years, we're able to see the challenges that the structure of the program itself has led us to. We've had some staffing challenges as well with the current setup of how our program is run. So really refining both the immersion and the acquisition program so that we are able to sustainably year after year provide really great instruction to our students, regardless of which program they're in. Another really key piece is to update the lottery procedures, which has come before the board before in previous years. But that really is looking at revising the priorities for our lottery system so that we've got more focus and emphasis on enrolling students within the district, which is key for getting the appropriate number of classroom spaces for the students we have on campus.
And lastly, in the next years, we will need to make sure that we keep our budget balanced because there are certain reserves available to us that we've put up in the last few years. However, in the coming years, the budget has severe budget cuts from the state level, which will make it very difficult to develop an operationally break-even budget. So we have still some remaining restricted one-time funds, but we need to create a very good plan to use the yearly available Prop 28 and ELOP funding, and also use strategically the remaining one-time funding in order to make it possible to have the positions that we need to be successful and to have high-performing students, which then in the next step will give us a good chance of an easy charter renewal process. And after the charter is renewed, hopefully for more than 5 years, which is possible to up to 7 years, then we have a good leeway of not thinking about charter renewal for a while and then making the steps possible to move on to bigger goals like a new facility. And as far as the assumption go, we just assumed the school is what it is, and we have the situation that we're in right now. So no specific assumptions noted here.
And I just want to let the board know that we've got about 5 minutes left of Biggie and Casey's time. So I don't know if there are follow-up questions or things you want to make sure to cover before, but I want to make sure we're taking advantage of them, the time they have allotted.
Thanks, Christina. You guys are still going, right? Like we still have a few more, or this is the last slide? Like, I just want to make sure you guys finish. So that's good. That's
yeah.
Excellent. So we have, thank you, Christina. We have about 3 minutes. I will open it up to questions from Frank.
No questions,
Frank.
no comments.
Okay,
No,
I was gonna say, you already gave up your time from the last one.
Yeah,
So
so that's why I'm saying no questions, no comments at
okay.
this stage.
Sam,
Thank
it's you. There you go. You got your 3 minutes.
All right, I'm actually going to reserve my time for later so that we don't get cut off in the middle of questioning.
Okay, Pete.
Same for me. I will wait for, we have more time.
Katrin.
Same for me too.
Man, I do have a lot of questions, but if I feel like if I ask you one, we're gonna go over. So I will reserve my time. I think you guys did a great job. You captured some of the challenges of the organization really well. I think it's really critical that just everyone in this Zoom space like recognize how important it is and how open-minded the board is, because these are going to be very different presentations. So we're super excited to see that you've put so much work into it. Okay, I'm going to do one because I've got 2 more minutes. This is for you and Casey and Biggie both, right? So it's going to be one of those like, well, tell me what you think about it. What is something, and Casey and Biggie, this is individually for both of you. What is something you would have done that you felt would have really grown this organization? And that's subjective, what your interpretation of the word grown, that if you were allowed to do it under the previous executive director, it would have caused growth in the organization that you weren't able to accomplish. So you got 2 minutes. I take a minute each. Casey, start.
Oh, that's a big question to ask in a minute. I think for me, the biggest piece is our program, our language program in particular. I think our IB program is pretty solid, but with the changes that we've had in student demographics and student needs and the challenges of staffing, being able to just completely restructure how we move through immersion throughout elementary school and acquisition throughout elementary school in preparation for middle school, I think would have had a really big impact on who we could enroll at earlier grades, how we could retain students as we go through the years, and how we could better set them up for our middle school program in particular.
And for me, I think I would have liked to do more groundwork for outreach and for since we were 2 people, like the executive director and myself, who would have been able to do that outreach. I would have liked to build a basis of supporters that are potential donors to the organization, and to be more out there and create a stronger marketing and a stronger brand around the school, so that we would have been already a step further in acquiring external funding sources.
Thank you, guys. And thank you for being conscientious of our time. Christina?
Yeah, I think we're good. And then you mentioned that there was a closed session, right? So we'll be chatting then. Thank you. Luther, nice to meet you. Christina Greenberg, we haven't met, but I know you and Nora have been in close touch over these last weeks. I'm the co-founder of Agility and looking forward to supporting you, and obviously I've been supporting the board and the community in this search. We've got about, what do we have, a half an hour, I think, Julian, full told, for this conversation. about 15 minutes to your presentation, but if you need a little more time, feel free to take it. The boards wanted folks to be able to feel like they're really finishing versus getting cut off. So looking forward to hearing that. And then once you're done with your presentation, we'll just do quick intros so the board members can tell you who they are. Do your presentation. When you're done with your presentation, we'll wind up. And then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Yasir, you wanted some time in closed session with the candidates. And so we can figure out a time for Lutheran to chat with you, or would you rather wait and talk to him another time?
No, I mean, if we have time, like just like we did with Casey and Beatty, let's get some questions done and open and then, move on.
Okay, sounds great. All right, thanks so much. So Lutheran, why don't we have the board members? I think looks like Pete, I see you first on my screen. You can then lead off to someone else, but introduce themselves, let you know their connection to the school and how long they've been on the board.
Good evening. I'm Pete Goldschmidt. I've been on the board for quite a few years. I had a daughter who attended, but she's graduated a long time ago, and that's that.
Hi, I'm Samantha Eisner. I am one of the parent representatives on the board. I've been on the board. This is my third year of service and I'm completing. I have a fourth grader who's at Goethe. He's been at the school since he was in kindergarten.
All right, I can go next. Hi, Lutheran. It's Catherine. Nice to see you again. I am the other parent board representative and joined the board at the exact same time as Sam did almost 3 years ago.
Hi, I'm hold on, I'm gonna go on video here, sorry. I am Frank Bertin. I'm one of the original founders of the school. I serve at the pleasure of the board as the treasurer of the board. My kids have all termed out of the school. 3 of them went through the elementary school.
Hi, Lutheran. We've met. President, I've been serving for the 4 years at the pleasure of the board. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you.
Any other board members? No? Okay, great. Thank you. Lutheran, you have the floor to introduce yourself and to do your presentation.
Well, thank you for sort of giving me this time tonight. And I'm going to start off. I mean, I think people have heard enough about my personal story, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about my personal story because I was asked to, and then move into sharing some of my thinking about the strategic plan of the school, and with a huge caveat, sort of some of the understanding that I've developed from what I have been able to read and the documents I've been able to see. And ordinarily, I would not be offering this without having been in the school for a very long time and having really sort of gone through everything. So I just want to start with that caveat. So first slide. I think part of, what's important about me is kind of figuring out why it is that I'm motivated to really be in education to begin with. And as I thought about it, one of the things that comes to mind all the time is the American promise, this notion of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and thinking about sort of what is the role of education in this pursuit. Next slide. The woman in this sort of, it's from 1958, Ruby Williams, Ruby Victorian, was my mother. She was voted most beautiful girl, something she was really proud of. I think we think about segregation as something that was a long, long time ago. But my mother, even after, Brown versus the Board of Education, attended a small, all African-American school in the South where she learned from secondhand books. She was someone who kind of had to really push herself to get the kind of education that she needed to liberate her own potential. She reminded me of one of my great mentors, Frederick Douglass, who sold his food to actually get reading lessons. And this notion of sort of the liberation of full potential is something that my parents gave to me when they moved me into a community where they knew that I would get an education that would allow me to determine my own destiny, and one that would allow me to liberate my own potential. But beyond liberating your own potential, I think education is also about creating a more just world, a better world. And that's one of the reasons that I'm drawn to Goethe, because Goethe is not only about preparing kids for college and career and civic engagement, but cultivating people who can help us work across differences, who can build cooperation, because that's going to be essential for this next generation to be able to solve the existential problems that their generation will inherit. And hopefully the outcome of this will be a more peaceful, more just world. And the other piece of this is really thinking about, for me, how it is that Goethe does this, and the notion of education as something that is about human development. It's not only about educating the mind, but it's about human development. And how do we develop human beings who have the values to both in how they act in the world and through their words create a better world, create better communities, who show us our best selves. Next slide. I think about, and I love music, so there's always a soundtrack in my mind. And the soundtrack in my mind as I looked at the triadic agreements was, imagine. If we could sort of imagine a world in which imagine Congress actually having mastered these triadic agreements. If we can sort of cultivate human beings who can really live and embody these agreements, we can have a better world. I'm an unashamed idealist. That's part of the reason that I'm in education, because I believe that we can do better. And I believe the kids are the ones who can show us the way. The clear highlight of my visit was the Goethe students. They were amazing. The young people that I met did embody these values. They were kind to me. They connected with me. They were respectful. They were smart. They were the kinds of human beings that all schools should be able to cultivate. Next. Again, I sort of think about the IB profile, building people who have the knowledge, who are reflective, who are informed, who are caring, who are principled. I kept thinking, as I was thinking about Goethe, the word principled kept standing out to me, because it's a word that we don't use very often anymore. It's something that it doesn't seem to have the same value as it did at one point. I think that is something that we need to embrace again. And it's another reason that I'm drawn to Goethe. Next. I said, one of my great sort of educational teachers is Sir Ken Robinson. And this whole notion that education is not a mechanical system, but it is, it is really about, again, human development and creating the conditions in which human beings can thrive. And that to me is something that Goethe seems to embrace. Next. The idea of knowing is not enough. We must apply. I believe this goes to the core of education. Education is really, the most classical definition of education is really about developing the tools that are necessary to be able to navigate their own world and improve upon it. And so to me, a lot of education, if it's irrelevant and it's not connected to students' experience, then it is not education that they're going to hold on to. It is not education that's going to allow them to build on what's come before, to innovate and to improve ethically their environment and improve upon their community. Next. So the strategic planning. To me, the strategic planning, when I think about the role of the executive director, I think the executive director really is the person who is one of the guardians of the mission, the vision, the triadic agreements, and the IB learner profile. And all that we do, whether it's from budgeting to facilities, it all needs to be guided through this lens. And it's another reason, if I didn't feel that I connected to this, I wouldn't be in this process. Next. So I looked at the strategic plan, and it was very, as I looked at it, there'd been a lot of really good thinking involved in it. And so when I was looking at it, I was trying to think about how can we sort of strategically tackle some of the issues that Goethe faces. And of course, I agreed with the categories, marketing, facilities, finances. I did sort of take the liberty of changing to academic excellence for all, because I think one of the things that really excited me about Goethe is how well the students do, even by standardized measures. And not only for one subgroup, but across subgroups, because the big question for the country right now is how can we educate all kids to a high level? Next. So when I look at strategic planning, I usually try to do one of two things. I try to figure out sort of what are the questions, what are the core questions that we need to consider, or what is the problem that we're trying to solve? So when I sort of boiled it down, these were the three that I came up with. How can we drive revenue generation to develop the facilities to support Goethe's unique approach to teaching and learning, and to expand its share of the school market to drive enrollment, fundraising, and sustainability? 2, how can we drive revenue generation to hire, retain, and train world-class teachers and administrators, and strategically increase staffing to advance the program and to prevent burnout? It was very clear to me, even in my visit to Goethe, people are really working multiple jobs. They're wearing multiple hats. And it's something that, I think comes out in the SWOT analysis. And I think it's something that becomes a threat to the school if the school doesn't actually try to address it. And then what is the infrastructure and capacity? What infrastructure and capacities does Goethe need to build to advance its mission, its vision, and its strategic plan? Because the strategic plan, the way it's written, assumes that there's certain infrastructure in place, assumes that there's certain capacities in place. And in order to make the strategic plan realistic, you actually need to develop that infrastructure and those capacities to get the work done. Next. As I've looked at schools, I've probably been working on strategic plans for about 18 years. And in that time, I've looked at a lot of definitions. I've stolen from some people, and I've kind of created my own based on what I've stolen and what I found works. Most schools, to me, really struggle because they're not intentionally aligned. And the they need to intentionally align focus, energy, and resources, both human and financial, in order to accomplish the strategic goals. And that movement of the whole institution together for a shared sense of goals is something that is imperative if those strategic goals are going to become a reality. It's also an opportunity to look at the opportunities and threats, with the aim of realizing the mission. Everything goes back to mission and vision, mission and vision, mission and vision, and promoting long-term sustainability for the school. Next. So it's when I looked at sort of revenue, that's a huge thing that comes out. We need more money. How do we get more money? Clearly, there was the charter was redone so that basically it was 775 was considered the max enrollment. I still would want to ask questions about that max enrollment. I know we can do it, but is 775 an enrollment that would allow the school to, would it impact the culture and climate of the school? Would it allow Goethe to maintain its unique approach to teaching and learning, to maintain the culture and maintain the vibe? It would require, we need to look at also increasing fundraising, increasing grants. Are there alternative revenue sources? Alternative revenue sources take a longer time to be able to generate, and it usually requires more people. And so again, that has to be approached very carefully. Communications and marketing. There's stuff that we can do right now. I mean, basically, I would suggest, auditing the current marketing plan, the timelines, the efforts, the collateral material, how do we use digital marketing, looking at the infrastructure around marketing, and how are we looking at the analytics? Are those analytics really driving opportunities for us to look at new markets? I think there can be a lot of grassroots work with the parents and parent ambassadors hosting events in their home. Once the messaging is very clear in terms of what makes Goethe so unique and such a great choice, especially tuition-free. I think that we need to look at the impact of Goethe on students and outcomes. I think that influences parents to know sort of how has this education impacted the kids? What do they do after Goethe? Where did they go? I think that we need to bring the sort of the root of charter schools back, which was the initial notion of charter schools, that they were educational laboratories from which the traditional public schools can learn. I think that Goethe is doing an incredible job across a lot of different subgroups, and I think it can be a laboratory. And I think that is something that also can be an asset for the school in terms of gaining local media attention, national media attention, and international media attention. We need a marketing plan. Next. I'm gonna move beyond that. Next slide. So I think that ultimately we do need a professional marketing firm to really kind of do a market study and really help us figure out how to best tell and most effectively tell the Goethe story. And to also help us think about what are the channels that are going to be most effective in really driving enrollment and storytelling, because in the end, and great marketing for a school is really great storytelling. And how are you building, how is everybody sort of looking at key messaging and figuring out how they can tell stories that come to make that key messaging come to life and really make people excited about the school and make it a school, you know, where people really, you know, a lot of people want to be there. And you have a huge wait list. Next. Again, the piece that I think we need to consider here is, do we have people in-house who can help with the communications and marketing? Can we bring in resources from parents? Do we need to consider long-term having someone who's really responsible for communications and marketing? Because ultimately, if there is a rebranding of the school is going to need to integrate and monitor and deploy that new branding. And it's something that has to be kept up with. And again, I would ask sort of, do we have the bandwidth in-house? What resources can we get? What can we afford? So those would be some of my thinking around that. Next. The facilities. I reframed this goal a little bit because I just
hey, Lutheran, sorry, yeah. I'm just going to interrupt you. I don't want you to rush through it. We said it to the other candidates also. You have a Christina. What's the he's got another 26 minutes, right?
Well, we had booked till 7:45, I think, Lutheran, right? Am I right about that? Yeah. So about 10 minutes, but we started a couple minutes late, so we can give 15.
7:15 to okay, sorry. My note was 7:15 to 8 o'clock. So I don't want to rush. If you want to slow down, feel free to, but remember, you're also coming back in closed session, so.
Okay. This facilities goal I reframed a little bit, and it's secure, renovate, construct a facility that serves the vision and mission of Goethe, enhances the quality of the students' daily lives and learning, enables teachers to focus on programmatic innovation and excellence, drives enrollment and growth, and provides the foundation for sustainability. This one, I was just working on at New Roads, there was a master plan. And so there was a whole facilities plan and really thinking through the notion of whether or not it's better to kind of find a campus or a location that you can renovate, or actually to invest in the construction. The construction is very costly. It takes a lot of time. So I think there's a lot that has to be weighed in terms of what is the direction the school ultimately wants to go. I am close with some people at Ocean Charter and at Bright Star. I think it's really important that we learn from schools that have done this. It actually took Ocean Charter several years just to find the land and then to find the sources of revenue in order for it to build its campus. I want to know, how can we shortcut that process? I want to figure out what are the relationships we need to build in order to help us sort of move that process along as quickly as possible. I think that there are, I think we will have to have some mix of local, state, federal funding, as well as debt, as well as fundraising. And that seems to be the formula that Ocean Charter used. So I think there's a roadmap that we can develop with a reasonable timeline of when we can develop what. I want to get to know the Public Charter School Grant Program, Charter School Facilities Program, the Charter School Incentive Grants Program, the California School Finance Authority, and not only get to know them just by knowing the sort of the regulatory pieces and how it is that you get the funding and what kinds of schools are qualified for that, but also what are the key relationships that I would need to build in order to try to make that happen. There's a real big point of inflection for the school coming up in 24-25, because if the enrollment trends the way it looks as if it is, and we reach 470, then there is no more room on that particular campus to grow yet. So at that point, there's going to have to be, or even as soon as possible, there's going to have to be the notion that how do we look at, is there an intermediate plan that we need that would have overflow? And so you would stay in this campus, but also have overflow, or do you get a campus that you can grow into for a while that gives you the time to be able to move toward a facilities master plan? I do think a facilities master plan is essential regardless of what direction the school decides to go, because a facilities master plan allows people to come together for a common vision. And I think it's absolutely important that all constituencies be involved in building a common vision of the home that they want for the school. So I think by I would, by the second year, definitely have, I think, a notion of what a long-term facilities plan looked like, and working with the board, trying to figure out, is there an intermediary plan that we need to get to that master planning? And will we need a longer trajectory if we really want to construct and build something? How much time is that really going to take? Next slide. And then hopefully by year 3, ready to implement a long-term facilities plan. Again, I think what you can see is there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done, I think, to get to these strategic goals and to make them realistic and doable. And hopefully at that point, there will be an idea that we could launch some kind of capital campaign to be able to have a contribution from the community and other sources to help with whatever the plan is. Next. Next slide. Go back. The finances, I always sort of feel that the finances should tell the story of the school. The finances should really reveal the strategic priorities of the school and how it is that the human and financial resources are being used in order to, and aligned with those strategic goals. And it's clear to me that we really have to think about, staffing along with, facilities, and how can investments in the program. And so there are competing pieces to think about here. Build and implement a financial model and a multi-year strategic, sustainable financial plan based on optimal enrollment and other revenue sources that enables Goethe to invest in hiring, retaining, and developing world-class faculty, increasing staff levels, and securing, renovating, constructing facilities to advance its vision and mission. These pieces would have to be embedded within a long-term strategic financial plan and also a financial model for the school. And it's going to take some time to figure that out. Next slide. Next. The academic excellence, again, I think this is an area that Goethe can really leverage to really bring on a lot of attention to itself. This notion that all groups, all students are capable of achieving academic excellence. And I think looking at, are there achievement gaps? Where are those achievement gaps in terms of different subgroups? You know, looking at the scope and sequence of the curriculum. How does Goethe, besides state testing, really assess the effectiveness of its model? And really positioning it as, you know, a leader in education in helping us understand on a more global level, you know, how can you provide all kids with an excellent education and have them meet rigorous standards. But I think it's not just the state testing that we need. We need to develop our own framework to be able to assess the effectiveness of Goethe education and some of the other aspects that are not covered by state testing. Next. That's it. Next. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. What questions do board members have for Lutheran?
Frank, we got 3 minutes. If you wanna, unless we wanna go to closed sessions.
Refraining. I used my allotment already. Thank you.
Sam?
I will hold off for our closed session. I don't think I can ask one quick enough.
Pete?
I'm just going to ask one very quickly. If you could briefly describe some of the similarities and differences between Goethe and your current school.
Well, I think one of the major differences is that that it's tuition free. My former school wasn't tuition free. It was very diverse, and it was founded with 50% of the kids on financial aid, but it was not tuition free. I think that's one of the big pieces. I think even though the philosophies seem somewhat different, they're very similar. And in fact, you know, the testing that was used at New Roads was ESA, because the international schools assessment seemed to make more sense for the kind of education the school was providing. You know, because the notion was that education should be meaningful, relevant, and connected. So the schools are very similar. I do think, and it's not dual immersion.
Katrin?
Thanks.
Thank you. I will save my time for the closed session.
All right. I see some comments about, you know, releasing the questions for closed session. So Agility had prepared some questions for us. I know they're going to send out, actually the board's going to send out an email in a couple of days on where we are in the process. But also, yeah, we'll make that bank of questions available to the parent group, you know, if they wanna review it. Christine?
I can also send it to whoever's collecting the minutes for this meeting, and they can include it in the meeting minutes as well. Who is it?
Yep.
Sorry.
For the open session, yep.
Okay, yeah. Okay, great.
Okay, so we have gone through our agenda items.
So just as a point of process, so Lutheran is here. Do you all want him to stay on the line and stay with the board through into closed session?
So I'm gonna create a breakout room, and
Okay.
we're gonna move into the breakout. So I'm gonna stop recording. We're gonna move into the breakout room, and then I'm going to add each of the candidates as their time comes up. So we should be in there. I mean, I think we've allotted an hour and a half for it. So we've got some you know, we've got our interview section in the closed session, and then we have to talk about some other items, and then we'll come back to open session. So people are welcome to stay. And
Yes,
Okay.
are you planning on doing the questions to the candidates first or the other closed session item?
the candidates first. Yeah.
Oh, so we would need to let legal counsel know that that she has to be on standby for how long?
I don't know. I'll text you. Like, you know, we reserved at least you know, half an hour for each of the candidates. You know what I mean? And then we'll get to the next item.
Okay.
All right. So
So
I'm
just to
going
be clear, should Lutheran plan to stay with us into the closed session right now and then the other?
right now. Right.
they-
And then
I'll double check for his birthday.
Lutheran goes, and then we'll ask
And then the other-
Sagi, then we'll ask Biggie, and then
Okay.
just because their portions towards the end of closed session. So yeah, thanks for that.
Just want to double check.
Okay. So I'm
Okay.
gonna stop recording. Okay, we are reconvening to open session. There has been a new item that I just want to share with you guys on upcoming meetings. Sam's got a pretty tight schedule for April, May, and June. We'd love to have her join us. So she is going to give us some times to move our scheduled dates for April, May, and June. And I will, Biggie will send that over to you so we can reschedule our regularly scheduled meetings to accommodate her. I'd appreciate that. That being said, there's no, the board has approved language to be disseminated to the Goethe community regarding the executive director hiring process. And Biggie, I will share that with you for tomorrow to
And
deliver to the stakeholders.
Just to be clear, can I send it since I'm a candidate, or should Angel be sending it like she did before?
It's better.
Yeah,
The
it's better.
letter.
Right,
Yes.
Okay. You can send it to me and I'll give it to her.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And then I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yes.
I object.
Sam?
I object. It wasn't long enough for me.
Ah.
Just-
All right, all in favor, Frank,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Katrin?
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned at 10:06 p.m. Thank you, guys. We'll see you soon.
And Yasir, can you please send the recording to us?
Sure. I don't know how to do that. I'm going to stop recording.
Okay, I'm leaving you. I'm leaving
All
you
right,
with
bye,
the
see ya.
technical. Bye.